Oh, I think it's the air, the smell of the sea, the smell of the spruces, the sound of the sea.
I don't know, something about living on an island. I can't tell you what it is. Every time I go inshore, I'm just glad to get back home.
When you get used to living here and you go to the city, it almost feels like you're breathing gas. I mean, the way the air is.
And then leave here and drive and get on that Southeast Expressway and start talking to yourself. What damn fool would live here and go through this?
And it's being called by your first name by everybody, including the 2-year-olds. I don't really know. I can't put my finger on why I like it so much.
For most of us, the charms of Monhegan Island are quite easy to fathom. Here, 12 miles off the coast of Maine, the air is clear, the roads uncluttered, and the shore is rock-bound. For the 80 people who live here year-round, though, it's a tough life, and one that's centered on lobstering. It alone makes Monhegan life possible. Everybody does it, but only if the weather cooperates.
It don't look very good, but I mean, geez, you can't tell. I'll say about New England weather. If you don't like it, just wait a minute.
It looks bad. Looks bad.
Monhegan lobster fishermen have agreed to limit the lobster season to 6 months. It all starts New Year's Eve, when thousands of traps are trucked to the wharf.
Well, everybody's been waiting 6 months to start fishing. Hopefully you'll get a good price when you set out. The lobster's a good quality lobster. There's people inshore are waiting for them. It's been this way for a good many years, that you wait for 6 months and go in the wintertime when it's the roughest and the meanest and the hardest to do it. It seems like it at times.
Generations of Monheganers have enforced a special code of conduct here. Everyone observes the short season, a conservation measure to protect the lobster crop. Everyone pitches in to load traps. The island's 13 lobster boats average 500 traps apiece. And most important, all the boats go out at once. This ensures every captain an equal chance at that first crawl of prime lobsters.
We all start at the same time, and what we try and do is have everybody's boat running well, everybody healthy. If any one particular fellow has to wait for some reason, we all wait, because the first haul or two are, they're decent hauls and nobody can afford to miss that first haul.
One time it was the middle of the month. There was a fellow cut his foot real bad, and they waited until he got on his feet. I think it was about like the 16th of January, something like that. It was quite a little stretch. And they used to wait, years ago, they used to wait, for price, give a little increase maybe. But that's when they were about 50 cents a pound.
The most unsavory of the last-minute chores is bagging bait. Steve Rollins and his partner work late into the night stuffing salt herring into mesh bags for their traps. But even this is merely a necessary evil that makes life on Monhegan possible.
There's a small community here. People get along real well together. It's a close community. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing, pretty much. So, of course, you have to be careful what you do. As far as living on the mainland, I think if you want movies and social things to go to, it's fine. I find that I can do without them, pretty much. But when you do go in, we like taking a movie if we can, or go out to supper. That's nice, and then come right back home.
New Year's Day dawns wild and blustery, so opening day of the season, Trap Day, must be postponed. Although some boats brave the surf, the majority must rule.
There's a bit of a surge here, and there's an awful good chance to do a lot of damage to your boat, if not have somebody get hurt, you know, in trying to tie up and keep the boat tied up. And it's just better to be safe than sorry, I guess.
It's a waiting game now. The process of loading the boats with traps continues. Everything and everyone on Monhegan is waiting for a break in the weather. Trap day. Although the weather is still far from perfect, there's too much pent-up energy to wait another day. On shore, the whole community pitches in to help reload the lobster boats.
The last couple of days, you know, bringing traps down, everybody was getting really psyched for trap day, and then with the bad weather yesterday and not being able to go, and then they got the boats loaded, so the anticipation was really building, and you could see some people were really excited to go yesterday, and then there were other people who weren't excited at all, and you knew that they weren't going to go. And then everybody was all loaded up this morning, so they didn't have much choice with the big wind coming on, and they all got to set, and the tensions will be dying down. Everybody will be too tired to be angry tonight, and that would be nice.
Joe Parmelo, the island's newest fisherman, is especially keen to get his traps out. His life savings are invested in his boat and equipment. He needs a catch soon. For the seasoned veterans, however, it's just another day at the office.
This is a glad business. You're
right
glad
on.
when you start and you're glad when you finish.
Oh, God. That was so much fun.
Cool.
That was so much fun.
Unfortunately, as this long day wears on, the weather worsens. Most captains moor their boats in the harbor to ride out the storm, and only the dogs, sea dogs, venture into the open ocean, still setting traps. But even they are brought to a halt by the blizzards of January, which can change the landscape and seascape in a twinkling. Joe Parmelo, however, is too eager to let a little blowing snow cool his enthusiasm.
A little windy and cold, but we survived. Took out some bait, hauled probably 60, 70 traps. Came in at noontime. It was getting quite nasty out. We didn't want to kill ourselves first day. But it was a good first day, good warm up. It's quite a new thing to start doing. All of a sudden. Sure is nice when the lobsters come in, though. Let this one go.
Once lobstering starts, the island becomes a matriarchy. There are no men, there are very few men left on the island during the day, unless it's a bad day. And even so, the men often congregate in the fish houses, particularly the oldest fish house, which belongs to young Stanley. And they play cribbage and chew the fat and bend the elbow, probably.
You don't think he's got those blocks underneath the bottom of the boat that keep the rudder from going?
Shoot, these fellas don't even know what it is for go lobster. 3.
12.
10.
15.
The Odoms came from Quincy as teenagers because their brother took over the store. And they did that until 1978 when they sold.
Well, I've had a flat calm. Of course, in the wintertime, you know, in some ways you don't like to see it too calm. Because you know what I mean, the lull before the storm. Doug and I broke down one time right off Gull Head, remember? We anchored and it got dark and they would come looking for us. It was flat calm, just like a mirror. And the next day, the green water was going over Gull Head. So that's how the change could be. 21. Oh, no, hold it, I'm going to make a 3 cut. 30 for 6, what am I doing? 1 for 2.
The women have to get the lunches ready for the men to carry onto the boats, and they have to do the shopping. Often they leave their order at the store for the men to bring up in their trucks when they come in from fishing. And once they feed the men, they're off. The men are off to bed. They're dog tired, and the women spend the evenings alone.
I have 3 town jobs that keep me busy. Women pretty much run the town. You can't really have a man who's fishing running the town because he's not around very often.
The payoff for all this activity is harvesting, which begins the day after the traps are set. Left alone for the last 6 months and now attracted by the smell of the herring bait, the lobsters inch their way to the traps. Once inside, it's almost impossible for them to escape. Once the lobsters are removed, traps are rebaited and reset if they have produced lobsters, moved to another spot if they have not. Lobsters must have their claws banded to keep them from attacking each other. Periodically, the catch is returned to the harbor and placed in floating crates called lobster cars to await shipment to the mainland. Lobster behavior has long been studied by marine science the world around, but no men know these creatures and their mysterious ways better than Monhegan's old salts.
People at Woods Hole, and they tag these things and let them go the next year. This year I caught them again right in the same place. And they sent this scientific data back how this lobster had moved 342 feet in a year. And that's like putting a tag on me and coming back next year at the same time. I'll probably be right here, but I might have gone to California or somewhere else in between.
A basic love of the ocean you have to have if you go lobstering. And to love what you're doing, you know, look up and look around and enjoy what's there. It's something about the place. I mean, I'm sure there's other places in the world that do the same thing to people. But Monhegan did it to me and to my, the other fishermen here.
For the children of Monhegan, life is similarly uncomplicated. Most of them have reached the same accommodation with the weather and environment that their parents have. And a few of them will choose the same way of life. bound to Monhegan Island as generations of their forebears.
And then, of course, I love the woods and getting out to the cliffs and just looking. It's so beautiful. And I have been on other islands, and I have never found one that's like Monhegan.